Hello, my name is Julian Estrada, and today I will be talking to you guys about deaf culture awareness. How would it feel to have someone take their hand and cover your mouth with it?
Be disrespectful. Horrible.
Right? Now, imagine doing that to a deaf person. That is exactly how it feels like to them when someone of hearing or any other person were to come up to them and put their hand on top of their hand. Because that's what they use in order to communicate with. That is not the way to go, and that is completely rude. As you wouldn't do that with someone of hearing, correct?
Correct.
Many hearing people, as the deaf community refers to them, many hearing people believe that the problem with the deaf community is not being able to hear, but that's not the case. That's where ignorance comes into play. Many people believe just because a person is deaf, they're incapable of many things, or they are, in simple words, dumb. As we know, Izzy ruined the video.
Izzy! Oh my god!
I was honestly going on a
Dude,
roll for a minute.
Jalen's still outside.
Oh, I know, Jalen's calling. I'm sorry. What's up, bro?
You almost done, bro?
Yeah, I'm almost done, Birdie. Yeah, I'll be out right now. Alright, bye. Dude, I was doing so good. Alright.
Pinche Izzy. No toques todo el video, ponle pausa y nomás quitas allá a la nena. Me mandas el video donde se puso, eh.
It's cool. It's cool. You guys ready?
Ya.
Alright. Hello, my name is Julian Estrada, and I'm here to talk to you guys about deaf culture awareness. How would it feel to have someone come to you and use their hand to cover your mouth?
Terrible. Or disrespectful.
Right? Now, imagine someone coming up to a deaf person and then place their hand on top of their hand. This is exactly the same thing as putting your hand over the mouth of someone else. Because to a deaf person, to the deaf community, their hands are their form of communication. That is their mouth, that is their voice. And what you're doing is shutting down their voice, which is absolutely rude. This is where ignorance comes into play. Many people believe that deaf culture is something you can put to the side, or they have these false ideas behind it. Many people believe that deaf people, or the deaf community in general, are filled with dumb deaf people, but that's not the case. People hard of hearing or deaf people are just as smart and just as capable as hearing people are in every aspect. The only thing, which is obvious, they can't hear. That's all. So ignorance behind deaf culture, right? Many people don't intend to come off as rude. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't mean to come off as rude, because before even getting to know about the deaf culture, I wasn't always like aware of it. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know the deaf community was a thing up until I went to high school. After taking 2 years of ASL and actually learning about it, not being ignorant, I took like 5 minutes out of my day to learn something new. Wasn't that bad, and it was really cool. I learned proper etiquettes and do's and don'ts in the deaf community. I didn't know it was rude. For example, when two people are signing, it's rude to not walk past them while they're signing. And you may think, well, why don't I just tap the person to let them know I'm gonna pass through? In the deaf community, that's not the point. The way you go about it is by simply walking past through them, because if you were to tap them, now you're interrupting the conversation. When you go between the two, they could care less about you, to put it in simple terms. They just keep going and going and going. So to them, that's not rude. And other thing is that, as I said before, if you're in a classroom environment, you wouldn't put your hands on top of someone who's learning. You wouldn't put your hands on top of their hands. A deaf student, correct? Because that's shutting off their voice, and that's like, you just don't do that. Those are just some of the things behind the deaf culture. So you never throw an object to a deaf person either, because they don't know that would be coming to them. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a classroom, in a deaf classroom, and there are some hearing students in there, and they just throw these erasers, or they can throw a pencil, and they think this person can hear them. but they obviously can't. And it's like little things like these that really make a difference in a person's day or even a person's life. Another thing, you don't want to eavesdrop. Now, many people, when they see two deaf people communicating to one another, they find it interesting. Don't get me wrong, I did that too. But when you stare at two people having a conversation while they're signing, that's completely rude. That's considered eavesdropping. Whereas you wouldn't like vaguely put your ear towards someone who's talking and be like, oh, that's pretty interesting, right? You never initiate a conversation about someone's hearing loss. It's not something that we don't like to be touched about. It's not that we do not want you guys to ask, but it's just something that shouldn't have to be asked. It's not an incapability. It's not a restriction. We simply cannot hear. And it's a frustration that the deaf community still has to carry on, unfortunately. And it's a real pain. But the point I'm trying to get to is the do's in the deaf community. Things you can do to help yourself as well as our community. Because at the end of the day, we're all people. We're all this community, and we all share common things. So some do's that you would want to do, for example, would be during your introduction, first you would want to use the sign language alphabet, which would be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. If you don't know how to sign, the best thing you can do is inform yourself in the American Sign Language alphabet, as I just showed you guys. All you have to do is give your name and say, hi, my name is, and fingerspell. And that's how you communicate. Or you can say, I don't know ASL. Simple as that. Or write something down. But you don't have to, when you talk to a deaf person and you keep making your voice louder, you try to make your voice slower, your lips slower, that comes off as rude. Because we're not dumb, we can understand you, but we don't understand what you're trying to say to us. So write it down, have someone interpret it to us. Don't try to raise your voice because we're deaf, not stupid, right? Another do is maintain eye contact. It's very rude to not maintain eye contact. With a deaf person in the deaf community, expression is everything. If you were to sign and if you were to have this straight face, it would be considered monotone, like blatantly. It shows no emotion or no interest. You don't want to do that. So the best thing you can do is maintain eye contact and at least show that you have some kind of interest into it. Excuse me. Lastly, pounding and stomping, that's not the way to go about things. If you do want to catch someone's attention and you do want to sign with them, wave your hand, don't tap them, you don't have to do anything physical. That's the whole point about the deaf community. We use a lot of visual and gesture things when it comes to ASL. So if you were to ever make a funny or kind of off facial expression, the other person could take it in a different manner. And it can come off as either being rude or being very vulgar, depending on what you're doing. In conclusion, if people were to take at least 5 minutes of their day to educate themselves about deaf culture in our community, there would be a lot less problems and misunderstanding between our two communities. Thank you.